How's Joe doing?
You'd have to ask him. Obviously, I think you probably saw him go through the locker room, but it's good to have him around, and we'll just take it day to day with him.
Do you expect him to practice him?
I expect him to practice today, not today. No.
You expect him just out there with the guys to kind of get reacclimated and all that?
Yeah, that's his call to get out there, so he feels up to it, so we'll let him get out there and spend as much time as he needs to.
Did he surprise you today, or was that kind of the plan, as him potentially coming in?
No, we've been in good communication.
Zac, obviously from a production standpoint, you don't need to say how important Trey Hendrickson was to you guys, but when you had a chance to go back and look at just his whole season, what type of impact you felt like he had on your defense and the success you guys were able to have last year?
Tremendous amount. He's full bore, 100%, every rep in practice, every rep in the game. Causes a lot of problems for the team. They got to focus a lot of attention on him. Makes those around him better, and those around him make him help his success as well, with the interior D lineman and same on the other side. So happy to have him. He's done a great job. He's having a good camp right now, and we're expecting great things from him this year.
He was talking about just his journey through the NFL and how it didn't necessarily get off to the success that he has now. When you see a player that kind of is able to overcome something like that and be as productive as he is, what do you think you can attribute that most to after seeing him practice and play for a year?
Well, the determination, and understand that it's about consistency oftentimes. It's just getting a little better every day. And I think that's a good message even for some of the young guys we got that we drafted this year. It's they look up and they see, at the end spot, they see Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson. Well, Sam and Trey weren't Sam and Trey their first year in the league. They had their growing pains, and they had to learn every year, veterans helping them along, them learning a couple tricks of the trade, getting stronger, gaining more experience. And so it's just a good lesson that you just keep at it, keep eliminating your mistakes, keep getting better in some of your areas of weakness, learn how to play off of your teammates, and to use them to help each other, and you can get to the point where a lot of your guys are at.
Zac, how does the progression go from last week to this week to next week when you actually have a preseason game? What are you ramping up?
So the install starts to phase out to an extent. We got most of the stuff in. This week, obviously, we get to put on pads starting tomorrow. So you get to do a little more of the one-on-ones, a lot more tackling drills than we've done these last 2 weeks. And then once the install gets in, it becomes more game-like in terms of take the script away from the guys, so there's not the prep work that some of the younger guys can do to know what's coming at them in practice, and becomes more call-it periods, we call it, where it's more a game, it's more unpredictable in terms of what play is going to come in the huddle. They know what personnel grouping's in there, but they're not sure what the play is until they hear it in the huddle for the first time. And so that's where you start to get them ready for that first game against Arizona and what it's going to be like. So this week, again, finishing up the install, getting acclimated to the pads, and then we start to take away some of the scripted periods and start to do more call-up periods.
Pre-pads, pre-pads, pre-one-on-ones, how are you evaluating? Like you said, Trey's having a good camp. How can you evaluate that?
Well, just all the things that you can see that show up without the pads on. His understanding of the defense, understanding how to attack the different schemes that run on offense, get off on the snap, and just great hand usage. You can see that. That's what I really like about our veterans is just some of the details that they're doing even in walkthroughs and jog-throughs, just on terms of hand placement and some of that hand-to-hand combat stuff. They're still working that stuff, even though it's not full speed, even though it's not pads. That's when you can tell you've got a team that you're excited just to walk through because of how they do those different things. You watch, Ted and Alex against, DJ and BJ and Sam Hubbard over there sometimes on that side, and Trey, and some of the hand-to-hand combat that they have just in a walkthrough setting is fun to watch for me. So those are the things that we can still continue to improve on.
What did you think of Chris Evans' rookie year?
I think it was a positive start. It was we utilized him in certain ways. We felt that highlighted his strengths. Now the next step is just becoming that full back, and the facts are he didn't get a ton of carries there his last 2 years at Michigan, and so those are the opportunities where he's got to step up and start to accumulate some more runs, really step up in pass protection. He's year 2, so having a complete understanding of the playbook, and not being a guy that makes the mistakes that the rookies make. And so, again, he can take that next step. He's still got some work. He's got a lot of talent. We're glad he's here, and we're excited to work with him. And I think, Travion was a guy that was inactive quite a bit last year, but I think he's had a good camp too. So there's a good environment there that's pushing growth for both guys, and that'll be fun to watch those guys compete as training camp keeps going.
I mean, with Evans in particular, I mean, how huge is this preseason for him? Just because of the limited amount that you were actually able to see him at the position to prove pass pro in particular and things like that.
Yeah, it's and just young running backs, just understanding who to block, and how to block them, and those are the things that we'll continue to see growth from those guys.
Could you envision any world where he could be your number 2 running back and take over that third down back, or is that Samaje's job?
Well, I think we're always pushing that. Now, there's a ways to go there because Samaje is solid in those areas where, he's a good security blanket for us. He knows what to do. He's really good with the ball in his hands, good in pass protection, understands the pass game. So there's a lot of tremendous qualities to Samaje. He's certainly got a leg up right now in that battle, but that's what training camp's for, is plenty of times guys step up and have huge growth, and we'll see where it goes. There's always competition at all those spots to earn playing time. It's not always this is the 2 and this is the 3. It's this guy gets these reps, and those reps can start to increase based on what they prove they can do. And so it's not always just a clear-cut depth chart, especially at the running back position.
What's been your overall impression of the secondary at this point, camp, and what are you looking for in this first couple?
I think it's been positive. Today, tomorrow are big days. That install continues to grow for those guys. So now, where they're particularly young guys, probably playing with some confidence the first couple of days because the install was limited. Now you start getting different adjustments from the offense. You get more coverages on defense. So, you expect there to be some mistakes this week from some of those guys. How quickly do they learn from them? How quickly does it make sense to them? How quickly can they then get up to speed and play to their full potential because they're not thinking as much? That's going to take some time, but so far I think that's been a positive group so far early in training camp. I've liked what I've seen.
What differences you can glean from watching a group in live during practice versus watching the practice tape afterwards?
For me, oftentimes it's more the tape. Some guys may stand out, but you're trying to watch a full 22 of what's going on. So there may be some things that you don't notice as much until you watch the tape. So that usually is the ultimate judge there when we finally get a chance to watch it after practice.
How is Dax Hillman keeping up?
Good. He really about the right stuff, and his approach, great personality. I think he's fit in really well with the defense and the team. And, these reps that he's accumulating are just invaluable for him to be able to get that and be able to communicate with some of these other vets that we've got back there. And so it'll be fun to watch him continue to grow over the course of training camp.
I would think Apple has come back. Eli, how do you think he's come back? Kind of had a rough Super Bowl. How do you think he came back in his camp?
I mean, Eli has been a really solid player for us. So, I mean, people, judge things off of. We have a ton of guys who maybe there were plays to be made that you'd want back. There's calls that I want everybody, but I thought Eli was really solid for us down the stretch. That's why we re-signed the guy, because we like what he's been about. We like his play that he's been over there. He's a great communicator with those guys on defense, and so we're certainly happy to have him. And he competes every single play. That's what you want from those DBs. Guys are going to get beat. You better have a short memory. I think all of our guys do a great job. If they give up a play, they put that one behind them and come back and get right back in your face the next play. And that's what we want to see. That's the mentality we want from our DBs, and he certainly fits that mold.
He seems to be playing with with confidence. Mm-hmm. Everything with him has been contested.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no question about it. He's got confidence in himself, and that's the first step to playing in this league, man. If you got any self-doubt, then that's a tough hill to overcome there. And so, again, I think that he's got a lot of confidence in himself, and we got a lot of confidence in him as well.
What are your expectations for the interior of the defensive line, particularly with B.J. Hill and Zach Carter, with Larry Ogunjobi now gone?
To keep it rolling, B.J. really. He didn't get training camp with us, so he showed up, the week of the first game and really hit his stride as the season went. And so we feel really good about him jumping back in there and being a starter for us. And then you've got guys behind him like Josh and Tyler Shelvin and Zach as well. And there's some guys that got to compete for those jobs and provide that depth because the more guys you can roll through in there, usually the better to keep our older guys fresh. So again, when the pads come on, you learn a little bit more about some of the guys that have the less experience, and I'm excited to see how that takes shape over these next 2 weeks.
Zach, do you have any timetable on LC and Alex and what they could be contributing in the next week?
I think Alex, in these next couple days, will start to be phased in here. And so you'll start to see him slowly and be incorporated in some of the team stuff. LC will just continue to take it day to day for him right now.
When it comes to team captains or leaders in general, I know they come in all shapes, sizes, styles, but is there a common denominator? Is there something that a guy has to have about him to be a leader?
I think our team votes on it. And so the team is the one, usually, especially 4 years into an environment that everyone's familiar with. They know the players. They know the guys we've added. They see the truth in the guys. And so I always have no doubt that our guys will select really good leaders, that the team believes in, does their job. When they're in this building, man, they're all about ball. They put in the work that's necessary. They're not afraid to speak up when they need to, because that's the job as a captain, is to let me know when there's concerns that I need to be aware of. And the captains have done a great job of that in the past. And, there's only so many guys you can select. We've got more than enough captains. So it's always interesting to see who ends up getting it. And then there's a couple guys, you could probably have 20 captains on our team right now and feel comfortable with it. But at the end of the day, that's you don't carry that many.
In your mind, is leadership innate, or is it something that a guy can kind of grow into? And
Absolutely. I think guys can grow into it. I've seen that firsthand. Some guys that maybe as their role has expanded, they may play a position that demands some leadership. That doesn't mean that they have to be totally vocal. Some guys don't say a lot. They're about their job. Everyone trusts they're going to do their job. And so in that moment when they do speak up, it's coming from a meaningful place, And I would, I'm not afraid to say this, I would say Sam Hubbard early in his career when we had a lot of veteran players, he didn't speak a lot because there was so much veterans behind him. But, man, when he talked, everyone listened, And then over the years, as he's become more the veteran, he's a full-blown leader, and he talks when he needs to. But he's a guy that really stands out, that everyone just loved what Sam was all about, that when he did speak, even as a young player, everyone shut up and listened. And that's held true today for him.
As the season gets closer and closer, it's getting louder that Jamar, T, and Tyler might be the best wide receiving core in the NFL. How have they been handling this extra pressure, especially Jamar being so young?
Yeah, I've seen no ego from those guys. They continue to put in the work. I'll put up their work behind the scenes and at practice up against any trio, and that's all that matters for us. We're not into judging who's the best group of that doesn't matter. They're the best group of receivers for us, and all that matters is that they work as hard and have an understanding of what we want to do, as well as any. I can't speak to the other teams, but I'd be willing to put them up against any other trio in all football, and that's all we ask for. And so very pleased to have those guys. The guys that are in the room with them build off of that as well. They see the work that these guys that are getting all the snaps put in consistently over the course of training camp all the way through the offseason. And in that whole room, led by Troy and Brad, have really stepped up to the challenge. And it's just a really fun room to be around because of the standard that they have for each other.
How key was Boyd in establishing kind of what you want to build in 2019 back when y'all?
Yeah, critical. TB's always been a guy I've loved being around. No ego to that guy whatsoever. Even when there might be games, there's been games certainly over the course of his career since I've been here where he maybe was targeted 2 or 3 times. And I've had regret leaving a game, like here's one of our best players that we didn't target. And it's always me telling him, hey, just make sure I didn't forget about you. I need to get you more involved. And it's whatever, coach, I understand. That's just the way the game went. And never once have I heard him complaining about not getting targeted. And he just goes out there, works, leads. He's always positive. I don't think I've ever seen TB in a bad mood ever since I've been here. And that's one of the things we want when we ask for that consistency from our players. Are you the same guy that walks in the building every single day? And it's not a roller coaster of what are we getting today from this player. TB is really the model player from that standpoint when it comes to describing what we want to see from our coachable players.
Guys like Jamar and T, who are coming up, and how good is that for you to have a guy like Tyler kind of show the ropes in that
It's impossible for me to predict if T and Jamar would be the same way they are if TB wasn't around. But I certainly am glad that he is, because there's a veteran who's had a lot of production, a lot of success playing in this league. Those two guys see how he works and have been able to build off of that. But I think it's innate in those two guys anyway. They've come from national champion programs. They understand what the standard is there. That's part of the equation why we wanted them here. The other part was they're really good when you watch their tape. And we thought they could score a lot of touchdowns for us. But it's just a really fun trio to be around. But further than that not everybody sees all the time, that room altogether is a really fun room.
How rare is it for a guy like Tyler, if he doesn't get those targets after a game as talented as he is, for a receiver not to complain?
I think he sees the big picture in it all, and he understands that we're trying to feature the most talented players. We want the ball in their hand, and there's just some games over a 17-game season where it doesn't go that way. And just fortunate that we've got a guy that's got no ego like that and understands the big picture.
Is it important also to understand there's a big difference when Tyler talks? He's very confident, and he believes that this is the best group, but that's not to be confused with not having ego.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think there's a balance there. But again, our guys put in the work, and it's one thing you'd say something to a player who speaks out a little bit if you knew behind the scenes they didn't put in the work. Our guys put in the work, and so they're confident in themselves, and they're on a big stage in the highest level of all football, and you got to have confidence in yourself, like I said earlier. And so we've certainly got a group that's got that, and I think that's a very positive thing.
Zach, when you see guys who are already lost for the season, when you're barely touching each other around the league, and you get ready to put the pads on tomorrow and get practice, you want to see the physicality. How do you balance? How do you figure out that balance between caution and you want to see the physicality to decide who's your front 22?
Yeah, it's football. And these are all professional athletes. They have to compete. They got to compete now so that they're ready to hit the ground running when the season comes. And, we do spend a lot of time talking to our guys about what are our expectations. How do we expect in certain situations you can highlight, here's what we would have rather you do differently to help your teammate. But at the end of the day, they got to compete, and it's, you don't want to take the stinger out of them in training camp to where then they feel like they're rolling into the season and they haven't had a chance to fully unleash what they're capable of. So there's just that balance of protecting your teammates and still getting yourself ready for week 1 against Pittsburgh.
I know you said you didn't have a timetable on Burrow practicing, but just to have him out there in the meeting rooms, around the locker room again, especially at a critical time like training camp, what does that do for morale when he just had that unexpected injury and then comes back and kind of gets right in the groove? I have to imagine that's a positive thing for this team.
It certainly is a positive. He lifts the team up in more than one ways, and so I think for everybody to see him after not having seen him for a couple of days is certainly a positive that our guys can build on.